January 21, 1945, German troops never knew American Sherman tanks, had the world's most advanced radios. War has always been a storm of confusion. Smoke clouds the sky, artillery shakes the earth, and orders are shouted, misunderstood, or lost entirely. In the heat of battle, no soldier sees the full picture. They see only their own corner of the world, a road, a field, a street, an enemy that might be hiding behind a wall or just out of sight. In such chaos, victories are rarely won by the strongest weapon, but by the side that can make sense of the chaos faster. For thousands of years, armies struggled to communicate effectively. Roman generals beat signals into drums. Naval fleets sent messages with flags. Soldiers relied on runners, horseback couriers, or written orders that arrived too late to matter. By World War I, soldiers were using field telephones, signal lamps, and wires that were easily destroyed by artillery fire. When World War II began, many armies still depended on outdated communication systems, slow, fragile, and inefficient. Tanks could move fast, infantry could advance, aircraft could strike at long distances, but if these forces couldn't coordinate with one another, they were little more than powerful pieces moving blindly on a board. The United States military recognized something profound early in the war. Communication itself was a weapon, not just a tool, a decisive advantage. So they poured resources, energy, and innovation into military radio technology. They standardized training. They designed equipment that was simple enough to be used under stress, in smoke, mud, and combat without hesitation. They made sure the radio was not some luxury, but a necessity. And nowhere did this philosophy shine brighter than inside the M4 Sherman tank. Because unlike many nations, the United States made a revolutionary choice. Every single Sherman tank would have a radio. Not just the commander's tank, not just special units, all of them. This meant Sherman crews could talk, coordinate, reinforce, retreat, ambush, and respond in seconds, while their enemy was often slowed by silence. It was a quiet advantage, a hidden one. One so subtle that many German soldiers would only realize it after the war was over. But history is rarely that simple. The Sherman was never designed to be the strongest or the most heavily armored tank. It was designed to be reliable, mobile, and easy to produce in massive numbers. The United States understood that war is not won by the rare, the perfect, the flawless, but by the machine that can be everywhere at once. The Sherman could be built quickly. It could be repaired in the field. It could be driven by men who only had weeks of training. It could cross bridges that heavy German tanks could not. It could travel long distances without constant breakdowns. It was not meant to be a lone dueling powerhouse. It was meant to be part of a team. A typical German tank crew often found themselves operating a powerful machine, but one requiring constant maintenance, repair, and supply. A Tiger tank was a marvel of engineering, but it was complex, slow to manufacture, and expensive to maintain. It was like a luxury sports car on a battlefield made of mud, snow, and shattered towns. The Sherman, meanwhile, was a working engine of war. It didn't need to be perfect. It needed to be ready. But the Sherman had something far more important than its armor or gun, something invisible, something inside the steel, its radio. While German troops often believed they were fighting an inferior machine, what they didn't realize was that the Shermans were moving, firing, and reacting as a coordinated network. Shermans rarely fought alone. They fought in groups, and those groups communicated instantly. A Sherman might lose a duel to a Tiger, but an entire platoon of Shermans could coordinate, flank, and overwhelm that same Tiger, because they spoke to each other in real time. And this brings us to the true heart of this story. Inside every American Sherman tank was a piece of equipment many German soldiers never expected to find, the SCR-508 radio. This was not just a communication device. It was the nervous system of the Sherman crews. It allowed tank commanders to speak tank-to-tank units, to coordinate movement artillery, to be called instantly air support, to be summoned directly infantry and armor, to synchronize attacks. This was revolutionary. Most nations treated radios as rare or optional, often reserving them for commanders only. But the US treated radios the way modern armies treat oxygen. Every unit had it. Sherman commanders didn't have to wave flags. They didn't have to rely on runners. They didn't have to hope their allies guessed their intentions. They spoke, clearly, instantly, decisively. A typical Sherman platoon could rotate formation mid-battle, create flanking maneuvers, coordinate crossfire, shift defenses based on live reports they could adapt. To the outside observer, this looked like uncanny teamwork, as if the Americans were reading the battlefield instantly, reacting faster than any human should. But the secret was simple. They were talking to each other the entire time. Meanwhile, German tanks often fought in silence. Though German tank doctrine claimed radios should be universal, wartime production strain meant many Panzer models, especially early and middle war vehicles, lacked full communication systems. Some German tanks had receiver-only radios. They could hear orders, but could not respond. In the chaos of battle, that difference was catastrophic. Where American tank crews could say enemy on the left, flank and encircle. German crews could only see the danger and hope others saw it too. The Sherman's radio didn't make it invincible. It made it coordinated, and in war, coordination is deadlier than armor. German tanks were masterpieces of engineering. The Tiger I was feared across the front, armed with a devastating 88mm gun, capable of destroying a Sherman from more than a mile away. The Panther tank had superb armor and firepower, arguably one of the finest tank designs of the war. On paper, German tanks were superior, but war is not fought on paper. The German approach to tank warfare prioritized firepower and protection, but sacrificed reliability, speed, and communication. Many German tanks broke down before they even reached battle. Their engines overheated, their gearboxes jammed, their tracks snapped under strain. Their sheer weight slowed them to a crawl. Worse, their communication systems were inconsistent. In many German tank formations, only the commander's tank had a transmitter. Other tanks could receive orders, but could not respond. Some early and captured tanks had no radios at all. This meant, if a tank spotted a threat, it could not warn others. If plans changed, the platoon could not coordinate. If the commander was destroyed, the unit became blind. German tanks were lions, powerful and terrifying in a duel, but Shermans didn't duel. They hunted in coordinated packs. A Tiger might destroy one Sherman easily, but while doing so, it revealed its position, and the Sherman crews were already talking. Tiger at 10 o'clock, 2 tanks flank right, 1 distracts from the front. German crews could not reply. By the time they realized the danger, Sherman shells were already firing from the sides. The Tiger's armor was thick, but no armor is thick enough on every side, and no gun is useful when it doesn't know where to aim. German tanks were strong, but the Americans were connected. On real European battlefields, Normandy hedgerows, Italian hills, French villages, wars were not decided by the tank that looked better on a technical blueprint. They were decided by who understood the battlefield first. American tank units could coordinate with infantry instantly. Shermans could call artillery support within minutes. Airstrikes could be summoned right onto enemy armor columns. Armored advances could adapt mid-movement, based on real feedback. German units often moved like disconnected parts, strong but isolated. Imagine 2 tank platoons approaching each other on a fog-covered field. The Germans see a group of Shermans ahead. They prepare to fire. But without radio coordination, each German tank commander must act individually. The Shermans, meanwhile, spot the German formation and speak in calm, controlled voices. 4 panzers ahead. Line formation. Left flank open. Move and circle. The Shermans split, surrounding the German tanks. The Germans see the maneuver happening, but cannot communicate effectively. Their response lags by seconds, the most fatal currency in war. By the time the German tanks react, the Shermans have already positioned themselves where German armor is weakest. This was not luck. This was communication. And across Europe it happened again and again. Tank radios were not just tool, they were lifelines. Sherman crews often spoke of hearing calm voices through static, guiding them in the middle of fire and smoke. They remembered the crackle of orders, the short bursts of updates, the breath of a commander thinking, calculating, directing. One American gunner later recalled, "The radio wasn't just equipment, it was hope. If I heard voices, I knew we weren't alone." German survivors expressed a different memory, one of silence. Many remembered the eerie loneliness of battle. Tanks burned nearby, infantry scattered. Without communication, they often fought blind, not knowing where help was or whether anyone even knew they were under attack. One German tank officer wrote in his journal, "We had strong tanks, but we were deaf. The enemy moved like they shared one mind. For soldiers, the radio was not simply a device. It was the difference between organized defense and panicked survival." By the final years of the war, German commanders finally understood what had been happening on the battlefield. The Americans had not been winning with superior tanks, but with superior coordination. Germany tried to reorganize radio distribution, tried to retrain crews, tried to increase communication protocol. But war does not wait for second chances. The Americans were advancing, the Allies were unified, the German war machine was breaking. And the silent advantage, the one hidden inside every Sherman, helped ensure Allied victory. Not because the Sherman was perfect, not because the Americans outshot or out-armored their enemy, but because they could talk, and talk fast. In war, the loudest weapons are often remembered. The booming cannons, the roaring engines, the steel giants moving across shattered landscapes. But sometimes, the most decisive weapon has no sound at all. It is a voice through static. A command shared at the perfect moment. A message received when everything is at stake. The Sherman tank did not win World War II alone, but its radio, its hidden advantage, helped shape the course of history.